Welcome back to the Photo Banter podcast. I'm your host, Alex Gagne, and on today's podcast, I speak with photographer Travis Carroll. Travis is a commercial photographer based in Kansas City, Missouri, where he has worked with clients such as Bose, Energizer, Gatorade, and Cadillac, to name a few. In this interview, I speak to Travis about his passion for automotive photography, his experience working as a retoucher, and also how he made the transition from assisting to shooting full-time. I've gotten to know Travis over the last year and really respect his passion and attention to detail he brings to his work, so I was excited to get him on the podcast, so I hope you enjoy, and thanks so much for listening. Well, I now welcome on, a long time coming, Travis Carroll, Kansas City's finest. Excited to have you, man. You know, we've been talking. I've known you for a little while now, but there's a lot of stuff I don't know about you, so I was excited to get you on here. But I guess start off, man, for the people listening, like, where do you grow up, and like, what kind of stuff were you interested in as a kid growing up?
Yeah, well, so I'm from a little suburb south of Kansas City, like 30 minutes. It's called Leawood, Kansas. Born and raised, did the whole thing, did high school here and all that stuff. And, you know, I don't really know what I was into as a kid, right? Because like my memory is not that good, right? But like the big things that stick out for me as a kid were like skateboarding, and like my sandbox. That's like it, right? I was real into music for a while. I started playing drums, stuff like that. But skateboarding is kind of like the big thing that I kind of latched onto early, that kind of actually was pivotal in the foundation of forming me as a human being.
Was the skate scene in Kansas City pretty big when you were growing up?
Yeah, man, it's pretty good, right? So there were a couple of dudes here who went pro when I was pretty young, and that did a lot for the scene. They built a couple of really nice skate parks. The skate shops are really good. A lot of support for skateboarding here, for sure, big time. So it was real easy, and there was real easy access, and there's really good spots, and everybody was super into it. So it really worked. It was nice.
And like, were you into skateboarding before photography, or like how'd photography come in the mix?
Yeah, duh. Right. So yeah, skateboarding was like, if you would have asked me when I was younger, what are you doing? I was like, skateboarding. That's it. Nothing else. Right. That's it. And then in high school, I took a photo class. I had a teacher who, for some reason, liked me and liked what I was doing, even though I was failing, not doing very well and stuff like that. But she told me I was pretty good at making pictures. And when I went home and told my parents that, they were super hyped. They were like, oh God, finally, great. Something, right? Like he's going to do something. Because all my other siblings were like athletes and doing scholarships to here, to there. And I just didn't care about any of that. So they were like, thank God there's something that he's latching onto. And my mom had to come in for a conference with my photo teacher. And she was like, look, he's good at this, but he doesn't care about a lot of stuff, right? So I have to fail him on these classes, but I want to keep him in the class. So that was kind of an awkward thing, but that I think was the real spark of everything that I'm doing right now, because she was like, look, academically, this isn't working, but internally there's something in there and we got to get it out. So she spent time with me. We made a whole bunch of stuff, different personal projects. And that turned into my mom kind of just suggesting the idea that I pursue photography for college.
That's badass. They were supportive. And when I was like looking at your Instagram before doing this, and it was awesome. You have this post with your mom, and it was like one of your first big jobs, and you had her come to set with you, and you're like, dude, so pumped.
That was the coolest thing.
So that's cool, man. Your family's always been supportive of your like creative endeavors.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think my mom has been like, hey, you ought to do stuff like this. And my dad is like, whatever you want, man, let's go. Right. So it's pretty neat. My mom was in like broadcast and advertising, like way back in the day. And she kind of just threw out these little suggestions like, hey, what about this? Maybe go that way. I'm like, okay. And it just kind of stuck. And yeah. And I don't know, it's really interesting as I'm thinking about this stuff. I haven't thought about this in a long time. Even in college, I was just not good at anything that I was doing, which like the first year was a foundation where I knew I wanted to go there for photo. And they're like, okay, cool. if you want to go there for photo, you can't do photo your first year. You have to do a whole bunch of other stuff.
Like, yeah, I hated that too. I had to do like drawing all this shit. And like, I have like the worst handwriting and I had like no interest in drawing, but you had to do all this stuff, which, yeah, it was a little frustrating. I was like, yo, let me hit the studio. Let me get my hands on some gear.
Like, good God, get me out of here. My stuff looks like garbage next to these kids who belong here.
Yeah.
You know, that's like what I thought the whole time. But if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have understood like the fundamental principles of like what visual design is, because I didn't know shit.
Composition and all that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I had one professor, his name was Carl. God rest his soul. Carl, that's the homie right there, man. Yeah. He kind of slapped me around a little bit, and he basically sat me down like 8 months in and was like, look, man, I don't know what's going on with you, but like there's something in there and we got to get it out. I was like, okay, whatever. So he kind of, it was actually really embarrassing. We were doing some critiques. I'll never forget this, because I think this was like another one of those internal fire moments that are really responsible for everything that I'm doing right now. Right. There's a few of them, but we like had a project, and he kind of, we did it, whatever. And we'd hang everything up on the walls in the class, and everybody would critique each other's shit. We'd go around in a circle. I hated this. It was horrible. I convinced myself for the first whole year, I'm like, I don't belong here, man. This is kicking my ass. Like, this is horrible. But there was one project in particular where Carl was like, Travis. I was like, yeah. He was like, I can't tell which one's yours. I was like, oh. And he was like, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, what do you mean here? And he was like, up until now, you've stuck out like a sore thumb. Right. And I was like, okay. So then I was like mortified. I was like, oh my God, I don't know what that means. Right. I don't know what this guy's saying. Then we get through the critique and all that stuff. And he calls me out again. And he was like, hey man, listen, I can't remember the gal's name. I think it was Becca, right? Or Hannah. No, it was Hannah, actually. I remember this. He was like, Hannah gave you a critique of that work and she understood everything you were trying to do. And I was like, yeah, she did. He was like, why do you think that is? I was like, I don't know, man. He's like, it's because you took yourself seriously. And because you took yourself seriously, she took you seriously. I was like, oh my God. That changed everything for me after that.
Hell yeah, man. Yeah, because I remember that, like, I went to photo school too, and you do the critiques, and you could tell, like, there was like a bunch of kids in the class who really didn't give a fuck. Like you and me, man. Like, that's why, like, I really respect you. Is like you're all in on photography and really are about it. And I remember even back then, I was like only 20 years old in college, and it's like seeing kids in my class. I'm like, why are you even here? Like, you're wasting your time and your money. And yeah.
But yeah, like, dude, it's a real awkward time, right? Because at that time, I'm like, what, 20, 21? I don't know anything about anything. I think I'm good at stuff, and I don't even know what good is. I don't even know what anything is, right? So much like fundamental human growth was happening between that time, and I just didn't understand it. It was a real rocky road, college, but it was. I think it was really important.
Because even like in high school and college, like school, did you enjoy school at all, or were you this type of person where you're like just kind of antsy to get out? Or
yeah, anything that I could do to not be in class, I'm like, sign me the fuck up, dude. Get me out of here.
What do you think it is about school, this like the structure of it, that you didn't enjoy?
I think it was more so that I had no idea what was going on, and I was too afraid to let anybody know that I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
Right. I always thought the kids that were asking questions and like doing all this stuff, I'm like, God, they're annoying, dude. This is taking too long. We got to get out of here. I got to go skate.
Yeah.
Like, dude, we're losing daylight, and this guy's asking questions. Like, just, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's, it's a weird thing, right? Like, I'm a huge advocate for college, because not necessarily for the education, but for the fundamental skill building and like the foundation laying as a human. Like, you got to learn a lot of stuff in college, not all academic, Yeah,
and it's tough. I know for myself, like I didn't have the self-confidence, like the same thing, like sitting in those critiques where you're thinking like, oh, these people are better than me, like all this stuff. It's a lot of pressure, but I mean,
it sucks.
Yeah, I mean, you build that with time. Like, even like I know we've been talking off Mike about this, like now you're doing bigger productions and stuff, and that comes with like the same type of feeling, I would imagine, of like uncertainty and like trying to how to deal with bigger clients and bigger productions, and it's all this kind of growing pains, I would imagine.
Yeah, especially now, right? Which is crazy because, like, especially bringing into college the mix, like, I'm just now understanding the importance of everything that I learned like 5 and 6 years ago today.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, right? That's it's I don't know. I'm a bit of a slower learner and like I got to learn stuff the hard way, which sucks, man. I wish I wasn't like that. But it really it feels better when you really understand why things are the way they are and like kind of, catapult things,
Yeah,
etc.
man.
Stuff.
It's a long process. Like even me, like
Yeah.
I'm going into like my 13th or like 14th year, like working in this business from like getting out of school to working as an assistant to like, grinding it out. And it's like even now I'm like, I feel like I'm still just starting. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Dude,
Yeah.
and I think so as I talk to more and more people, like with what you were just saying, it's like, yeah, we've been doing all this stuff, but everything still feels brand new. I
Hmm.
still feel like I'm still pushing. And it's so great to hear that from people like when we're in Clubhouse talking like Martin and Jeff. And these guys have been doing it for a long time,
Yeah.
And if they're still feeling that, I'm like, damn,
Yeah.
that's cool. That makes me feel really good about my career choice and what I have to do.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess even like in college, what kind of photos were you making? Like, what kind of work were you interested in back then?
Man, anything that I could do to bullshit my way through a critique, I was all about, right? Like, although I don't know what I was doing, man,
Yeah.
because I didn't understand what a concept was. Like conceptual photography for me was like the most intimidating thing ever. And I really wish somebody would have just sat me down and been like, look, man, conceptual doesn't always mean recreating this dream that you had
Hmm.
and like tying all these crazy things back together. It's just an explanation of like what this image is. I really wish somebody would have told me that because that would have gone a long way. So
Yeah, because like, what were you photographing? Like, were you obviously you're into skating, but looking at your website now, it was like you kind of do a mix of like portraiture, you do automotive. Like, what
yeah,
kind of images were you making like when you first picked up a camera?
I photographed chairs.
Interesting.
Yeah, because it was one of those things where I would just watch critiques and it would just be like, well, I did this because of that and blah, blah, blah. And I didn't know what anybody was saying. It all just like for a long time.
Yeah.
And then I remember just being like, I see chairs all the time. I'm just going to shoot these chairs. And then maybe we'll just tie it into like, well, chairs are, representative of the people that sit in them. And then I learned a lot about chairs. It's
Wow,
like, whoa.
was it like a super fine art program, like the program you're
Yes.
in? Okay,
Yes. It was all fine art. Like that's what I have a bachelor in fine art. That's
that's
what I,
interesting. Yeah, because like
yeah,
your work
man.
now is all like commercial based, like really
Totally.
really polished work. But like back then, yeah, everything was very like
Yeah.
going
And
towards
that
like
was, I would fight with my teachers all the time. They're like, look, man, if you want to make advertisements, you got to understand this stuff. And I'm like, you don't know anything. You don't know nothing. Get me out of here. I'm going to go shoot wakeboards. Bye. They're like,
Yeah.
but it all makes sense now. Right. So I will say that there is one project that I'm fond of that I did. And I wish I actually tried to find it because I wanted to show it to you, but I don't know where it is. It's on one of my dusty hard drives, like in the
Yeah.
back of the closet. And it was as I grew up in a neighborhood that was like full of kids, right? There were like probably 10 or 12 kids and we'd all hang out all the time, run around causing chaos. And as I got older, we stayed in the neighborhood and everybody else left. So I went around and I photographed myself in front of all my old friends' houses.
Wow, that's
And I was
dope.
like, right? I'm like, that's sick. Like now I'm like, dude, I want to do that again.
Yeah.
Like I didn't understand what I was doing, but it was like this like evolution of like, this is me as like a young man standing in front of the homes of the kids that I grew up with. And like, we did everything together, all kinds of shit. And I have very minimal contact with those people now. Right. So
Hmm.
it just, I don't know, as you grow older, like some people stay, some people go and all this other stuff. And I wish I could find that because I like that project. That
No,
was
it's
cool.
no, that's super interesting. And even like I know within the last like 6 months or so, you added to your website this kind of it's called your like weekly, which is just like you document this kind of your daily life. Like it's not so much like a polished work, like there's not like retouching
Yeah.
so much. It's really just kind of documenting your life. Like how has that process been? Like, has it been beneficial to like what you're doing, you think? This kind of
Yeah.
yeah.
Dude, absolutely. Because I have never been one of those people that carries a camera everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was kind of a chore, like especially graduating college. Like I got a job shooting, and I was like, okay, well, my job is shooting,
Yeah.
so I don't want to carry this thing everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I adopted the weekly from Aaron Smith, right? When he kind of talked about what he was doing, and it made a lot more sense to me because I've noticed that in between shoots, like I don't pick up cameras. I don't do a lot of personal work. I don't do a lot of stuff like that, which will hopefully be changing in the future as a result of the weekly.
Yeah.
The weekly is just like a thing that it's, yeah, everything that I'm doing is like, this is what I'm up to. And it's kind of turned into a monthly now. But it's hard, man. Like it's really hard to pay attention every day and think about like, okay, got to do this for that. And when things become obligations, that's where I kind of like fall away.
Mm-hmm.
Like, damn it, I have to do this. Well, now I don't want to.
Yeah,
It's
you like you said you don't do a lot of personal projects. Like, why do you think that is? Obviously, you're busy with your day-to-day stuff, but like, is it
yeah.
something you think you want to try to delve into more in the future?
Oh yeah. Oh, dude, I got a
Yeah,
little like file thing right here with like printed physical treatments of like 4 or 5 solid projects that like
yeah,
eventually I'll do.
yeah,
And I'm obsessed with like such obscure finite details. And I think that really gets in the way of a lot of stuff that I'm doing.
yeah,
But and I don't really have a lot of funding for that kind of stuff. And like I don't really know how to think small picture. So that's like
yeah. You don't need a
moving
lot though.
forward.
Like, man, you can polish a turd, man. You know what I mean? Like, it's like you don't need
Yeah,
a
for
lot.
sure.
Like you got your Einsteins or whatever, and it's like you have some cool locations. You can make it work. It's like
Yeah.
for me, I think like personal projects is the thing that gets me excited about like photographers' work because it gives you like a glimpse into like their personality and what they're actually interested in.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
that's the stuff that gets me excited because like a lot of times when you're shooting commercial, it's like you're just executing some other brand's like vision or whatever. It's not like much personality to it sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think the gripe I get into is that I'm obsessed with advertising.
Mm-hmm.
That's like I love it. It's so great. So like that's how my brain thinks.
Yeah.
It's like in that structured kind of way. And what can we do to tell a story or send a message or answer the question? That's like those are the.
No,
But I,
I
I
get
think it's
it.
great.
It's a balance for sure. They're both like interesting and good like skill sets to have. Like
Oh yeah.
and like looking back, like when you were even in college, like were there any photographers' work that you were kind of looking at that kind of you feel like influenced you or kind of inspired your work early on at all?
Yeah. So I've never been good at knowing a lot of shooters in the periphery, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I paid a lot of attention to the people that were doing what I wanted to do locally,
Yep.
right? So there was a couple studios here that were making, like really neat, polished work of product and stuff like that. And at the time, that's what I was obsessed with. Was like super clean, really nice, shiny objects and stuff like that. So that's where I immediately dove into. There's a local studio here. It's called 8183 Studio. That's where I immediately jumped in, got the internship,
Oh,
started doing.
so you were interning there while you were still in college?
Yeah, that was a requirement of my
Okay.
program was that we had to get an internship,
All right.
and that was my mom was like, call these guys. I was like, all right.
That's dope. Your mom tracked them down for you. That's
Literally,
dope.
she sent me the thing and was like, hey, give these guys a call, huh? So I
Yeah.
did, and it worked. It worked out right away. We got in there and just went right to it.
What kind of like how big was the studio? Like what kind of stuff were they working on? And like what were you kind of doing when you first just kind of got there as an intern?
I think this is where it gets interesting, right? So it was a smaller studio, just two guys who were transitioning out of wedding into, advertising.
Mm-hmm.
And they just got a new space. And actually on paper, my entire internship was physically building this space with them. So I think they kind of felt bad because I think I was on two shoots. like for the
Yeah.
whole duration of my internship, because we were
Wow.
just building the space the entire time.
Yep.
So they're like, hey, maybe come back for a couple more things. And it would just be, I cleaned a lot. I really like to clean stuff, right? So I
Yeah. Yeah.
cleaned the studio a lot.
Travis has a passion for vacuuming. How many times a day you vacuuming, Travis?
Like 3, 4 at least. Got to keep it clean, baby. Got to
Yeah.
keep it clean.
Yeah.
That's like number one.
Yeah.
But that's like my thing, like I really like a nice clean workspace. I can't really think
Yeah.
unless the place is clean.
Yeah.
That's kind of it. And that's where I learned how to assist, learned what gear is, what that is, how everything worked. It was great.
And then like once you got out of college, what did you end up doing? Like obviously you were interning there. Did you end up kind of assisting other photographers in the area?
Yeah, not yet. Right. Yeah. So I graduated in 2013, and then almost immediately after I graduated, I get a call from a buddy who works at a automotive lighting company. He said, hey, we need a photographer. I think you should apply. We're going to, do what we got to do. So fast forward a little bit, I got the job. I left Kansas City, left assisting with that studio and all this other stuff. And now I have a job at a company that doesn't have a photographer or any type of creative department.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of awkward in the sense that I didn't even really pick up the camera for the first couple months because we were just like creating this creative department of this company.
And where was this? This wasn't in Missouri?
Is in St. Louis.
St. Louis, all right.
So just a few hours away.
Yeah.
But a totally different city, a place I'd only been to a couple times. And it was like within a week from application to accepting. Like,
wow.
Yeah, it happened really fast. But it was good, because I had to like use my whole brain on layout, design, integrating stuff for website, social posts.
Oh, so you were doing everything. It wasn't just like photography. You're like a straight up like creative, like everything
like department. Yeah, it was cool, and then the company got bigger. They hired a marketing person, this, that, the other. And then we got a new building and I got my own studio. And that's where everything changed.
Okay.
Because now I had this giant place and I could do whatever the hell I wanted in it. And I did. And it was great. So that's where
how long did you end up staying with that company, the automotive lighting company?
I want to say I was there for until 2000, like late 2015 or 2016. I think it was 2015. So like 2.5 years ish.
Okay. So for a minute, like,
it was great.
I would imagine it's probably pretty beneficial, like, because as you know, like now you're running your own thing. Like it's not just taking pictures. There's like so much to it. Like it's like making treatments, making promos, all this stuff. So like, do you feel kind of like working for that company and like not only handling photography, but all these other things kind of help like what you're doing now?
Dude, it's fundamental because I had a list of things that I had to do in a day. And typically I would just finish everything by lunch.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So from like 9 to 12, I was working on work stuff. And then from 12 to 5 or whatever, I was just learning how to be better at my job. So I would shoot all kinds of stuff. I started messing around with like light painting and how to light cars, and which sucks. By the way, those things are, God, they're so complicated. Right. But the studio I worked at, we shot a lot of product and beverage. Right. So if you can shoot a bottle decently, you can probably shoot just about anything.
Yeah.
Because that stuff's, it's really difficult. So that's where all that stuff kind of came together. I'm kind of doing this. And then I made a buddy who was shooting a lot of racing. And it was in St. Louis, it was like drift racing was kind of big.
Mm-hmm.
There's a track nearby, a pretty good scene. Started shooting a lot of that with him, but this is all on like the motion side. So helped him with all that stuff, did a bunch of that, this, that, the other. That's like not super important. It's just like whatever.
Yeah.
Dabbled in a little bit of motion, understood it, realized it's not for me, and got the hell out of there,
What didn't you like about it? Because you actually have one like really awesome project on your website, what you did with the local company in KC called Sandlot Goods.
Yeah.
Which you directed, but that's not something you want to do more of?
No, I think directing is absolutely the goal.
Yeah.
Via whether it be stills or motion or both.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the stuff that we were doing there was all just, and it was important. I just
Running gun,
didn't
kind of running gun stuff.
yeah. It was like, put the camera here. We got to shoot this, 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 and this. We got to fill this car with cameras, and we got to keep track of like 15 cameras, and we got to put them on like 10 different cars. And how the hell am I going to keep up with all this stuff? There's so many cameras.
Yeah.
Which was good because you have to learn all that stuff, and it keeps your brain sharp, and blah blah blah, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, there's a
That was
lot.
good.
There's a lot of those shit jobs you have to do before like you're doing like bigger stuff now. Like
Oh
even
yeah,
like when I talk to Art Schreiber, like the one thing that always sticks out in my mind, like everyone knows like he's like one of the biggest entertainment photographers in the world now. Like he's in LA doing movie posters, all this shit. But little they know, like when he started off, the dude was shooting like babies and like weddings and all types of shit that everyone does. And it's just like
I love it,
it's like a journey, you know?
dude. Totally right.
Yeah.
And like now we're in like the 2015 era, and this is what I wrote it down earlier. I was like kind of going through my timeline, and I wrote it like 2015 to 2018. We'll get to that, but that was like my hustle and fucking grind years.
Yeah.
And I don't like those terms too much, but like those were the years where anything that came up, it was like,
Yeah.
what do you want? I'm in.
You need me to
Sign
drive you need
me
me to
up.
drive the box truck, I'll drive the box truck. You
All
need me to
day.
get the coffee, I'll get the coffee, whatever.
Absolutely. And in that time frame, and I'm kind of like scattered here, but
It's
it's
fine.
all relevant. Like I went from having a solid job,
Mhm.
making way too much money as like a 23-year-old or 24-year-old. So then I just bought a whole bunch of stuff. And that was good because after shooting all this auto racing stuff at the same time and like using all my vacation days, and now like freelance and like my job, they're kind of like doing some stuff like this. So I had to leave the job to pursue this other thing.
Mhm.
And then pursuing this other thing was like, this kind of sucks. I don't know if I want to do this
Oh, like
anymore.
freelance, not knowing your next job's coming in and where the money's coming from. Yeah.
Yeah, but like even further, that was like auto racing. I
Yeah.
was like, dude, that is so taxing.
Yeah.
Like shooting a whole bunch of that. Then I started shooting a ton of weddings
Mhm.
and like scouring Craigslist and like odd jobs. It's like, I need a photographer for this ice skating competition. I'm like, sign me up. I got a camera. Let's go.
Yeah.
Because at this point, I got no money. I got no savings. I got nothing.
Yeah.
So anything that I can do to keep a camera or to be around people with cameras, I'm in.
Yeah.
Whether it be shooting, assisting, PA, all kinds of like that's where I don't even know a lot. I don't remember a lot of that stuff. There was a lot that happened.
Yeah, man, it's like building blocks. Like it's not, and no one like, and very few people get to go from like, yo, just got my camera and now I'm shooting the cover of some magazine. It's like, no, like you have to like
Dude, yeah.
build your
That's
work
like-
up and then just build your network up, and it's like an ongoing process.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, if yeah, and in that time of just doing anything, like it was literally anything. I drove Uber for a while, which was
Mhm.
like really fun.
Yo, I
would do that
I did Postmates, dude. I was
Yeah,
delivering
dude, like
whatever.
not bad.
Yeah,
It's
dude.
like kind of fun.
Yeah, it was not
right?
bad. I had a ton of weird fucking jobs in between, but you piece it
Yeah.
together because, like, I don't know about you. I just from talking to you, like, same with me, man. Like, you couldn't go work in like some cube office building. Like,
No.
That's the same reason like you're into skateboarding because you're just like a independent dude that wants to do this thing, and that's the fun part about freelance has its stressful moments of like not knowing when the next job's coming in, but then it's also exciting because the options are endless.
I think that's the best thing about it.
Yeah.
Like that's what makes me so excited is like I'm not a gambler,
Yeah.
but little do I know that my whole career is a gamble.
Yeah, dude. Chips
all I do
chips
is-
are in, dude. And the older you get, it's like, all right, well, no turning back now.
Yeah. I'm like, dude, we're in it to win it now, right? Like I've already put my whole self into this.
Yeah.
Like I got no other option. So
Yeah.
it's got to work.
Yeah, definitely. And I know now you kind of have made in the last year or two, you've kind of made the transition from, working as an assistant or like digital tech and all these type of jobs to now you're basically you're shooting for yourself now and doing client work. Like, how's that kind of transition going from like assistant to being like, you know what, now I'm just going to focus on my own work?
That has been something I've been looking forward to for a very long time.
Mhm.
I worked for a guy in Memphis and I can't remember his name for the life of me, but I remember he asked me, he was like, you want to hold a camera? He's like, you want to do this? I was like, yeah. And he was like, wait 10 years, he's like, do everything else, right? For 10 years. And I stupidly was like, okay. So I waited 10 years, right? Which you hear a lot of other people and they're like, I waited like 2 years, 2 or 3 years. But I don't know why I listened to this guy, but I did. And I'm glad I did, because in the last, I think it's been like nine years, 2011 to 2021 would be 10. But then 2020 was when I was like, all right, I'm shooting. So like 9 years of assisting for people all over the place, and then going from assistant to PA to, digital tech. And then sometimes like the odd second shooter or this, that, the other. So many things have like, just, it took me doing everything to understand like, yeah, okay, this is it. This is what I want to do. But the transition, I think, has been hard, because it's really easy to be support, especially when that's kind of like what you've been doing, but I don't know, it's hard, it's exciting, it's terrifying. But above all else, I finally feel like I'm ready, and that's something that, you never feel ready or this or that, the other. But I set the deadline for myself. It was like, as soon as I turn 30, I'm going to start trying.
Yeah, definitely.
And it was like,
and it's like you've built that network of people in your creative community, so like like when the job comes in, because like the projects you're working on, it's not just you, it's a team of people. You have that support behind you, and that's not something that you can just like, that this doesn't happen overnight. It's just like you build those relationships, and then you can work on these bigger projects for yourself.
Yeah, dude, totally. I'm so glad, because my first big job, my first like big kid job, that's the one where I had my mom. She came and hung out. I'm so glad that it happened when it did, because if it had happened a year prior, oh my God, it would have been a disaster.
Yeah, it's like you wouldn't know how to piece it together or whatever.
Yeah. It's like, dude, I so desperately needed that time to like understand the industry, because it's so vast. There's so much that goes into it. And what I'm really learning now is like, okay, man, you spent a lot of time learning about everything else. Now let's like compartmentalize all the stuff you learned about being a good shooter. And that's the constant struggle that I'm dealing with right now, is like, okay, cool, but like to be a good shooter, I got to focus on this. Yeah. But how do I not focus on all that?
Yeah, it's a lot of moving. It's hard. It's a lot of moving parts. And let me see here. In terms of like promoting your work, like how have you been finding clients? Like now that you're off on your own, is it just like from relationships you built over the years, or are you doing a lot of outreach, or how do you find those first clients? Because I think that's something like, people just getting into the business, it's kind of hard to get your foot in the door anywhere. How's it kind of work for you? Because I know you're doing some big campaigns now.
Yeah, I have no idea how that happened. If I had to guess, I would just say being around all these people long enough, and then somebody gave me an opportunity. That's like the Cliff Note version of it, because I know for sure that my first big kid job that I call it, it happened in 2020, was the result of a tag along shoot alongside motion out on a farm in the middle of Missouri in 2017 or 2018. And I didn't even know if they liked those images. And then 2 years later, they're calling me for like this large campaign.
Yeah.
I was like, what? Okay.
Was there a feeling like you got the right number? Here we go.
Literally, I was like, I will never forget getting that email. It was like the middle of the summer or whatever in 2020. He was like, hey man, long time no talk. We worked on this together. And I was like, yeah, we did. Okay. And he was like, already showed your work to the client. They love it. This big job is yours if you want it. I was like, is this I was like, am I being punked? Is this a joke? So we talked about it, and I don't know why that guy just like thought I was ready for this, because I'd never put it out there that I'm like doing this type of work. But he was like, yeah, we could do it. You handle this and we'll do that, and let's do it. I was like, oh yeah, great.
Damn, it shows, man. You put in that work, man. Opportunities can come your way.
Sure.
Uh,
Yeah.
have you always been like, because as you know, like once you start working on these bigger productions, a lot of it is like being able to communicate with clients, being able to communicate with a team of people that are going to be helping you out. Like, is that something you've always been comfortable with and like good at, or is it something you think you kind of get better at with time?
I think it's something that I for sure was and am getting a little bit better, just awful at,
Hmm.
because it's really hard to go from the person being told what to do to the person saying this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
There's a huge disconnect, at least for me, um, of being like the person in charge. And like
Yeah.
I've never been in charge of anything in my entire life.
Yeah.
Right. I'm the last of five kids. I never had my own bedroom, never had my own bathroom. Like I shared cars, like all this other stuff. I'm like, dude, I don't know how to control anything.
Hmm.
All right. So like all of this is culminating and it's like, all right, man, here you go. You wanted this, here it is. And after just like, a lot of, I say a lot, some trial and error, I'm already seeing a little bit of improvement on communication
Hmm.
and just like overall how to project and really give that sense of clarity for everybody, because that's what it's all about, like clear communication and just understanding what we're all doing. That's like,
And like setting a tone. Like I know first ad job I got where it was like, big crew, there was like an RV hair and makeup stylist, and it was just like,
yeah,
and I was just like so stressed out because there's like so many moving parts, and then I'm sure it probably
yeah,
came off of my face, but then like I realized you gotta like take a breath and like just chill, because like people can see if you're stressing, and you don't want to
yeah,
put those vibes out in the world in on
dude.
a
And
set.
that is real as hell,
Hell
right?
yeah.
Like I've heard a similar version of that story 10 times. I'm like,
Hmm.
not me, dude.
Hmm.
Nah, I got it. It's all
Yeah.
good. Psych.
Yeah.
It's like, ah, I don't know what I'm doing,
Yeah,
but
man. It's a
it's
lot.
cool at the same time. But
Yeah. Yeah, because I know you just had like a couple months ago, you shot a big campaign. You said it was like the biggest job you've done. I guess now that it's kind of done, you finished it. Like, how do you feel it went? Is there like anything you would have changed in terms of like how you approach the production or like even the communication stuff we just talked about? Like, how do you kind of, I guess, review yourself?
yeah, I feel way better about this one
Hmm.
than I did about, the previous one. And I think it's still just more notes of like effectively communicating, setting a good tone, making sure that everything is everybody's on the same team to create for the same goal.
Hmm.
That's where I have a tendency to kind of jump around, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm like, oh, here we are. Wait a minute. Like, what's going on over there? But understanding like this is what we're here to do.
Yeah.
Hey, department heads or what have you that I'm just kind of learning about now is like, here's what we're going to do. And then it's on them to disperse the information to their teams.
Yeah.
That's
And
cool.
you're also like, I know you're big on notes, like you keep a lot of like notebooks and stuff. Like,
Yeah, dude.
is that something you've always done? And like, what is the stuff you're writing down? Like, is it just stuff to kind of keep your day to day organized or creative
Yeah,
stuff? Or,
absolutely. Right. So uh, I never took notes in school at all, never took notes on anything. And it, again, one of those things that it took me a long time to understand about myself was that I don't have the best memory, like if I don't, or memory retention, right? Like
hmm.
I remember the most obscure, random things because I think that stuff is like really funny.
Yeah.
But when it comes to important things or like, this is what I need to do and this is when I need to do it, all that stuff, I write everything down. I live by my calendar. It's like totally full. Like everything has something. Um, and yeah, that's just the best way for me to understand and track my progress. That's why
Hmm.
I started like a blog on my website in 2014, and then it was basically just a review of like all the shoots I was doing.
Yeah.
And that was kind of just like, this is what I'm doing, and this is how I feel about it, and this is how I did it, and et cetera, et cetera. And that evolved into what is now like lessons learned. And then it became like, okay, here's what I did, how I did it, and all that other stuff. But really, this is just a journal for me to come back to be able to track my progress, visually and digitally, And then it kind of formed into like case studies,
Yeah.
which is like what I'm really into. And that's the best way that I learn.
Yeah, it
Again,
seems
kind of
like
going back to all that.
you're interesting, man, because like you're very like we're getting the subdued Travis Carroll today on the
Oh
interview,
yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
you're a
This is
hyper
professional
you're a
Travis.
hyper dude. But then on the flip side, you're also like very organized, and like you're saying, like your studio
Yeah.
has to be super neat. Like, have you always been organized that way?
No,
Yeah.
not at all. Right. So like growing up, my dad was super fucking military guy, blah
Mm-hmm.
blah blah. He vacuumed the garage. God is nuts. um and I hated it. It's like, God, dude, I'm just trying to watch my cartoons and I don't want to clean everything all the time, man. Damn
Yeah.
it. So my room was usually a disaster, right? Even I don't know, man. I think it was more like once I understood, like, okay, I have a task and then this, that, the other, that's when I became super structured, super organized because it just it feels really good to just know like I'm gonna walk in here, I'm gonna go psst, 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 psst. It takes the stress off,
Yeah,
you
and
know?
at this stream in terms of like your business, it streamlines it. And like that's the
Yeah,
one thing I'm really trying to work on for next year is just kind of streamlining everything. Cause as you know, when you're shooting a lot, just in terms of like you're backing stuff up and like having your archive organized, because the longer you do it, it's just more and more stuff. And even just the way you invoice, and like I've gotten better at it in years, but I'm always just constantly like tweaking. And just because like the more organized you are, the less time you waste. And
totally.
as they say, time is money, baby.
Time exactly. Like stack it up, dude. I'm
Yeah.
trying to make a shitload of money doing this, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
but it's cool. Like there's so many things that and I'm like a huge I never was this person up until actually last year I turned into like a morning person.
Okay.
This is brand
Uh,
new, like
uh,
super new. I'd be like 4 a.m. like working on whatever I could just to
ch-
keep moving.
chugging Red Bull.
Yeah, like straight up. Cause I had the issue where like as soon as I stop, it's like
Yep.
I can't stop. And if I do, it's like I go to sleep.
Yep.
But I've adopted this new thing of like being a morning ritual person, which is super dope. And it's like really productive.
What are those morning rituals?
Yeah, man. I wake up early on the early side.
What
I
how early are
go
we
and
talking?
like you in the warmer months, like 6
Okay.
a.m. type of
That's,
stuff.
that's good.
I have a really cool neighborhood that I'm in. So I go and I walk the neighborhood. I've been here for, I don't know, like 4 years or whatever. So there's not much of this neighborhood that I haven't seen, but there's so much of this neighborhood that I haven't seen,
Yeah.
because it's like big buildings, industrial, all this other stuff. So I go and I like study the neighborhood and try to take a different route, this, that, the other, and just notice stuff. And that sparks my brain, gets my brain moving. And I would come back and I would eat like yogurt with granola, vitamin C, blah, 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 whatever. And then just like sit down, look at the list that I wrote from the day before, get right to it and just bang, bang, bang,
Yeah, it's
So
good.
it's
That's
cool.
important.
Yeah.
And one thing I was kind of curious about, like obviously you're in Kansas City. It's kind of a smaller market in terms of like photography. A lot of people feel like they need to move to New York City or Los Angeles, one of these kind of spots. Like, have you ever felt that pressure to move to one of these bigger markets?
Yeah. Every day.
Yeah. What do you think?
I
What
literally,
keeps you in KC?
I love it here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a hard thing to hear, but I'm from here. My roots are here.
Yeah.
I have a studio space here. I have like gated parking, like multiple cars. Like what I have here, I would have a hard time, I imagine, getting in Los Angeles or New
Yeah.
York. Plus, as I'm learning more about my industry and where I fit in, being in the advertising side of things, you don't have to be based anywhere, but it's really nice to be based where a lot of things are happening.
Yeah.
Right. So kind of like looking at my own city under a microscope, there's a lot of shit that happens here. We got some big agencies here.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're in the center of the country. I can get anywhere on a plane in 3 hours ish.
Yeah.
And, the cost of living is nice. Being based out of here is really great. But I do feel the pain of not being in some of those other markets, especially as I'm transitioning and trying to get my name in
Yeah.
front of people.
I think it's like there's benefits I could see like living in New York because you're just gonna get work from like being around. Like
Exactly.
there's so much more of a creative community. Like, and I know like even I'm in Boston, which is a smaller city. It's not tiny, but it's not New York. It's not LA. So it's like much harder to like make those connections. Whereas like if you live in New York and LA, there's always like this photo events going on, gallery stuff. They're just more
Yeah.
going, but it's not to say you can't do that stuff. You just have to play the game a little bit differently, I think.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've heard from since day one, right? It's
Mhm.
like you want to go where the work is, then go where the work is.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's I have like this weird PTSD of like if I move, like I moved and then my dad died, like just a couple months later. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, ah, shit, I don't want to do that again.
Yeah.
That sucked. But at the same time, being here and having less pressure on my shoulders of just day-to-day life has given me the ability to really tap in and focus and understand my industry.
Yeah,
That's what I've been
dude.
doing.
And you got
So
fucking like I'm the same way, man. I mean, I like visiting those places and like I'm only like 3.5 hours from New York, so I go down there as much as I can. But like
yeah.
I feel like you just have more space and there's like you're saying, there's not as much overhead. Like I feel like if I was in New York, it's just like a concrete jungle, man. I don't even know what the fuck I
Yeah.
would shoot out there. Like
There's a lot.
yeah.
It's
It,
like just go, 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 go. And
yeah.
while I do like that type of space, it's really nice to go to those places, get it done, and then just like give it back
Mm-hmm.
and go home,
And
you know?
do you feel like being in like a smaller market, do you feel like you have to be more of a generalist in the type of work you do? Or do you, because like looking at your website now, you do a mix of like you do automotive, you do lifestyle, you have some really good product work. Like,
Yeah.
do you see yourself being a generalist throughout your career? Or do you want to kind of like make kind of refine that in the future, you think, or like what's your
Yeah.
mindset? Yeah.
I'm really glad you brought that up, right? Because I think after studying and kind of like spending some time in different markets and getting a further understanding of the industry, et cetera,
Mm-hmm.
it's clear to me that my market that I'm in is a generalist market
Yep.
because of the lack of even just here in general, there's nothing that you do here. You just do everything here,
Yep.
right? We don't have beaches, we don't have mountains, we just do everything else,
Mm-hmm.
and that has definitely trickled into the work that's available. And then you add in our super inconsistent weather, and it's like you got to be a studio person here because
Yep.
that's the only way you can actually work,
Yeah.
right? And I was formally educated in like as a studio like product shooter, right? That's what I was assisting and teching and spent a long time retouching all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And after a severe burnout, it was like, dude, I don't want to have anything to do with any of this. This sucks, right? Because while I'm a little bit of like I can't be caged. I can't really sit in a room and like do all that.
Yep.
I'll go nuts. And that's what happened. I was like, I got to get out of here, man. So a lot of the work that I have available for showing at the moment now is a result of my education of being like a well-rounded studio shooter,
Mm-hmm.
right? My goal is to kind of narrow in and then kind of take all of those technical learnings that I've kind of gathered and apply that to just more lifestyle, kind of like dynamic lifestyle stuff. Automotive would be great, but that's really hard to get into. So
Automotive.
yeah, that's like a really difficult niche to fill.
Yeah, that's one. Yeah, because you're like the first person I knew that was like a big. I didn't even know what F1 racing was before I met you, which is like I know it's a gigantic worldwide sport, but like
Oh yeah.
the automotive thing, like have you always been into cars? Like, what do you enjoy about photographing that stuff?
Yeah, dude. Like, as I got a little bit older and I was really into skateboarding, then I started being able to drive myself to the skate park. And then I was
Hmm.
really into cars. I don't know I have no idea where that came from. Then I spent a pretty good amount of my life being really into cars and like, I'm going to build a really fast car and, oh, let's make it even faster. And like, let's do this crazy thing that hasn't been done before. And like, blah, blah, blah. And I think I burned out on that too, because that takes so much time and so much money. I had a lot of time, not a lot of money.
Yeah,
Right. So that's kind of like, yeah, but understanding the complex engineering that is an automotive, like automobile, my God, dude, teams and teams of people spent months of their lives designing the dashboard on your
Yeah.
car.
Oh
And
yeah.
like, I love studying that shit and just being like, dude, this is like, this is the result of 842 people over, I don't know, 2.5 years. And this is what we have. This, and everything is intentional. That's what I like about automotive. Nothing is just there to be there.
And
So,
automotive photography is so interesting because, like, talking to you and some of our other mutual friends over the last year, it's because, like, for me, like, I never had any interest in cars really so much, or like car photography. I've always been portrait, but I've like, even in the last year, I've learned a lot. And there's like, even within car photography, there's so many different sectors. There's like people
yeah,
that shoot like super like polished car stuff, and then there's other people that their work is trying to put it more like in an environment and make it look more natural and not so much polished. Like,
yeah, it's
how,
crazy.
yeah, like, and like, how do you, because looking at your website, a lot of your stuff's like, it's a mix. Like there's like a lot of, there's
Yep.
like some polished stuff where you have like some real like motion action kind of stuff. I don't know if it's done in
Yeah.
post. And then there's some more stuff where it's like cars that are kind of in a real environment in front of like a condo building or something. Like,
Yeah.
how do you kind of view your car photography, and like what kind of stuff you want to keep shooting, I guess?
I think if I were to be able to keep pursuing automotive, um, my dream would just be to shoot the engineering, the process of the engineering to the lifestyle. You know,
Yeah.
if it were a thing, I don't know if it's a
You
thing
can
to
do
shoot
it,
like
man. We're
a,
putting it out there in the ether, baby.
yeah, that's like my whole dream for my entire career would
Yeah.
be to shoot like the campaign
Yeah.
of like engineering, studying, building the result, and then putting the result in the hands of the people it was designed for, you know? And that's why it's easy with automotive, because it's like a whole, people are romantic about the design of vehicles, and it's like they're powerful machines, you
Yeah.
know, that are specifically built to be machines, right? Some of them just fit 12 people and have stowaway seating, and you can fit, you know, whatever in there, but it's all amazing. I think it's just great. I don't
I
know.
was
Does that
gonna
make sense?
no, definitely, man. It's really, there's a lot goes into it. And like, one I was gonna ask you about, I'll pull it up here, and people are, if you want to watch the YouTube
Yeah.
version, you can see the video. You got the photograph. I don't know what this was for, but you photographed this. What is this? A Ferrari?
Yeah, that's the 458.
What
Dude,
was
this
this?
is
What was the
this
story
is
behind this shoot?
this is one of the most important projects I've done in my entire life.
Yeah.
So this was in collaboration with a good mate of mine. His name's Jake Potts,
Yeah.
over at a place called Britton Stroby in St. Louis.
Yeah.
Uh, Jake's like a tremendous retoucher, extraordinaire, and now he's shooting, which is like, watch out, world. This guy's an animal.
Yeah.
So we'd been messing around together, like just like thinking he's one of the people that I kind of tribute with me, challenging me to look inside my brain and like find out more information that's in there, that's kind of like expanded my horizons on how to do this job better.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense, but so we pretty much, I had a acquaintance that we had done some stuff for when we were doing a lot of automotive stuff, and I just said, hey, do you have a car that we can borrow for a few days just to do a study and just to really kind of, you know, shoot this car?
Mm-hmm.
And the guy came back, and we got one. It was like Thursday, and he was like, yeah, no problem. I'll drop it off at the studio tomorrow, and then you guys can have it for the weekend.
Wow.
Like, okay, great. Oh, I guess I'm going to St. Louis.
Hell
Right.
yeah.
So like, I think it was Friday afternoon. I had some work to do, got in the car, drove straight to St. Louis. This was there. Jake had already prepped the studio and got it all ready. We didn't really have much of a concept when it came to this, but we were just going to study this thing,
Mm-hmm.
which was so easy to do because this specific vehicle was a breakthrough when it comes from combining like racing technology and consumer vehicle stuff and putting it all into one thing that, you know, like the steering wheel was partially designed by a Formula One driver, Michael Schumacher.
Yeah.
Contributed to the design of this, which is like a big deal. But it was cool. Like we toyed around with a whole bunch of different ideas. We just shot the hell out of this thing over 3 days.
You
And
guys
then
really
Jake,
shot every square inch of this thing.
oh yeah. Well, there's a lot of stuff that we missed too. There's Jake there. That's the space we shot in. But Jake built this CG environment that was designed after the structure of the A in the Italia. So then it's pretty cool. It's pretty
Wait,
cool.
so all this like the flooring here is all CG?
Yeah, it's all
Like,
fake. Yeah.
wow, I didn't know that. I
Yeah.
thought you guys had like some sick location. I was like,
No.
wow, that's fucking crazy. Yeah, so like how did this like collaboration work? Like you photographed it and he kind of did retouching and CG pretty much?
So we both shot it.
Yeah.
We spent 3 days shooting, setting up shots, doing this, that, the other. We both retouched. He was like, "You take these, I'll take these." We did it, but Jake built the environment, and it was
Wow.
modeled after the A. And I think if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you see like the clay mock-up or something. It's just like behind the scenes. But then so I went and shot textures of just like stuff here in Kansas City that eventually were the textures that were overlaid into the environment.
Yeah.
Yeah, there it is. So
Oh,
that's
shit.
the A. You can kind of see that's like the whole environment that the car lives in.
Yeah.
Which I'm kind of bummed about, right? Because like at the time, this is how my brain thinks. At the time, I had a buddy living in Italy, and I was like, "Hey, man, I need you to get on a train and get out to Maranello and photograph some textures
Yeah.
and send them to me," because Maranello is where the birth of Ferrari is. So I was
Yeah.
like, "How cool would it be to shoot this thing, get some original Maranello textures to put into this background, whatever." That ended up not working. We just shot textures from Kansas City, and Jake kind of built them all in that environment. And then, but the cool thing about this project is that we did it backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, when you do stuff like this, you'll photograph like an HDRI 360 environment, and then you'll CG render the car and drop it in and light it to match the environment.
So when you say like photograph a 3D environment, that means like initially you were like your dream was to shoot the Italy, the city in Italy. So you would go there, shoot that environment, and then bring it back into post, pretty much.
Yeah, well, that wasn't our. We knew we were doing it backwards because it's like way harder.
Yeah.
And we were like, "Fuck it, dude.
Yeah.
We're good at this. Let's just like do it the hard way, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
study this thing." But yeah, typically you would build your environment and then have it, and then because you can manipulate the car a lot easier to the environment rather than the environment to the. It's like the whole. I don't really know a lot about the CG stuff. I thought I was gonna learn it. I was like,
it's a lot.
Nope. Yeah. So I think this is like one of the proudest projects that I have because it was so thorough, and we really took our time.
What camera is this? Like a scan back? What is this camera you guys are using here?
That's just that's the Cambo Actus.
Yeah.
With it's got like the bellows, and I can't remember I don't remember what lenses we're using, but that's just like an IQ back, like a 50 megapixel back, phase 1.
Yeah.
Or one of them, I don't remember, but it was cool. It was neat because while we were shooting it with the bellows, so like we focus stacked everything, and it was cool. We didn't have like an automatic because all that stuff was analog, So we had to like you take the white piece of tape and you mark it on the side, and you like measure out your increments.
Yeah.
And then you shoot it, and then you slide it, you shoot it, slide it, to build your stack. It was complicated.
I would imagine just like the file management of a shoot like this, because it's like it's so many different shots, and then I'm imagining like you're blending all this together. Like it's not like it's just here we got the softbox, we're setting it up. It's like tons and tons of frames, and then it's all blending it back together. So like the file management alone has got to be pretty intimidating.
Yeah, it sounds a lot harder and more difficult than it is.
Yeah,
but it was great. This type of project, this is like, I want to do that for a living. Like if I could do that, sign me up.
Fuck, you can, man. Keep doing it. Like keep more of that shit. That's why I realized like all you gotta fucking do is like reach out to people. Like the Ferrari thing. It's like, yeah, can I use this thing? Sometimes people say no, sometimes people say yes. And like if you just ask, like you can kind of do some pretty cool shit sometimes.
Yeah, and that's where I'm getting better at that. But while transitioning, like there's so much that I'm in my way from a lot of things, but I'm learning how to get out of my own way and just like, yeah, asking,
Yep.
hey, can we do this? No? Okay, fine.
Yeah, especially because this type of stuff you're doing and want to do, like you can't just do it yourself. Like it
Right.
requires like a group of people, and like it's you have to ask people to like help you sometimes. It's a tough thing to do, but like, I think there's a right way to go about it where it's mutually beneficial if you're just trying to build your book.
Oh, totally. And
Yeah.
that's the more those types of things are what I'm learning, especially just how to direct a team, right? But then also like how to gather a team is a whole other skill set,
Mhm.
subsect thing of all that. It's wild, dude, but it's 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 so far it's been like one of the craziest jobs I've ever had,
Mhm.
is just like doing this job.
Hell yeah.
But because a lot of other jobs have finish lines,
Mhm.
right? And it's like a race to the finish line of retirement, I guess, or CEO or whatever. But
Yeah.
like this job, there is no finish line.
Mhm.
And that's why it's so like exciting because
Hell,
we're just racing to keep racing.
yeah,
And
man.
like that's why we're doing it,
You get back what you put into it. I mean,
Yeah.
it sounds corny, but that shit's really true. Like,
Dude, yeah, exactly. Like that's where I'm like, yeah, it's a little corny, but I love it. I'm
yeah,
obsessed with this. This
yeah.
is like all I know.
And
It's great.
one of the toughest things is like pricing your work. Like, how do you go about this? Because like, as you know, every job's completely different. And I think like yourself, like I don't have a rep. I don't think you have a rep right now. You're
Right.
just kind of handling all the business stuff yourself. Like when a job comes in, like what's the process of like coming up with the number? Because I think obviously everyone struggles with that.
Yeah, this sucks. And I'm learning more about it. As I
Mhm.
learn more about it, I learn how much money I've just been leaving on the table
Yeah.
for the last X amount of time, right?
Yep.
Um, but because now I'm getting a little bit more connected, a little bit more understanding of the language, this and that, the other. Typically, like I'll open Blinkbit or something, just throw together what I think it is, and then lately I've been using like send the information out to like Wonderful Machine, see
Mhm.
what their perspective is, and then
Is
I
that
have
like a
like a
pay? Is that like
list.
a pay thing? Like when you use Wonderful Machine, you pay them to like come up with the number. Is that how that works?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's just I think I've paid like a couple $100 here
Yeah,
and
it's
there.
nothing crazy. Yeah. All right.
It's cool because they give you the perspective. They're looking at the entire country when they're
Mm-hmm.
thinking about pricing, not just your market,
Yep.
you know? So that's where there's like a little bit of it. That's like using the Getty calculator sometimes. It's like the
Yeah, I wouldn't
hell.
go by
I,
Getty. That's like a whole
yeah,
nother business. That's like a
that's
whole
like
different. Like, yeah,
it's
throw
like,
that in the trash.
whoa, who is paying these numbers? Like
Yeah,
what?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But and that's where sometimes we have to get those numbers and then I can call like there's like two producers here that I'm like, hey,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
what do you think about this? They'll make adjustments, look at all of it. I'm a multiple perspectives type of person. So like here, and then kind of like bring it together, you
Yeah,
know?
and that's when it's important to be a part of the creative community you live in, because then you
Yes.
if you're just like not talking to anybody and not part of it, like you have no one to bounce ideas off. And like I
Yeah. Like
know,
nobody wants to help you,
yeah,
which I'm
so
learning. I'm
yeah,
learning.
it's a two-way street.
It
Yeah, man,
is.
it's
I'm getting there,
it's
but
tough.
it's cool though. And like, we've been on Clubhouse, right? For the last X amount of months.
Yep.
Dude, I shit you not. I've learned my entire perspective of my entire career has changed from
Mm-hmm.
talking to everybody in
Yeah.
multiple markets about the same thing in real time. That is
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
that's changed
yeah, it
everything.
is interesting because you get to talk to so many varied people from around the world, and there's just so
Yeah.
many. You realize there's so many different sectors of photography.
Dude, it's nuts.
Yeah,
Like it is not. We've workshop things in rooms. Like, hey, I'm
yeah,
thinking about charging this.
yeah,
One get one. Nah, that's a little. Or yeah, that's fine. But like group all that stuff together.
yep.
And like it's such a case by case basis that it's near impossible to tell anybody how to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, I need all the specifics.
Yeah, definitely.
It's
But
hard, but it's
I get,
cool.
yeah, I love it, man. I guess to wrap up, man, we got about a month of 5 weeks left in the year. We're gonna be going into a new year. I think we talked
Yeah,
about
man.
this a little bit the other day, but like, what's next for Travis Carroll, man? Like, where you want to take this thing next year?
Yeah, the short and sweet way is like, watch out, because
Yeah.
I'm fucking coming. You know what I mean? Like,
That's the attitude, man. I like it.
yeah, but I have a lot of reviewing to do. I do like a yearly retrospective. I print all my shit out, hang it all on the walls,
Wow.
look at it, look at my goals from last year, make new goals, see what I accomplished, see if anything has to carry over,
Mm-hmm.
and then make new goals for next year, et cetera, et cetera. It's all that structured stuff,
Yep.
but I'm looking forward to it, man. Like, there's a lot of people who have been making me work really hard for a long time, and I'm getting a small taste of what it could look like to be the person making somebody else work really hard, and I'm
Yeah.
getting real hyped about it.
Yeah,
It's
man.
cool.
Well, it's exciting stuff, man. I'm glad we did this, Travis, because like you said, we've been friends for a little while now, but like I learned a lot from you from talking to you,
Yeah.
and really appreciate it. And for anybody listening, if they want to check out your work, like where's the best place for them to go?
If you want to see the work, you got to go to the website. It's carrolltravis.com.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to see other stuff, you got to go to the Instagram.
Yeah, go to his Instagram. You can check him out. On his Instagram stories, he'll be live broadcasting the F1 races, horns up.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, always with the right at the lights out, man. It's like, got to get them up.
Hell yeah, Travis. Well,
That's how
thanks.
we do it.
Thanks again, man. I guess we can cut it there. So there you have it. That was the Travis Carroll interview. Just want to thank Travis so much for taking the time to come on the podcast. It was a real pleasure talking to him about his journey with photography and all the different projects he's been working on lately. I can't thank him enough. Definitely go check out Travis's website at carrolltravis.com, as well as his Instagram at _CHRAVIS. I'll put all the links in the descriptions, but definitely go check out more of his work. Lots of great stuff. And as always, I'll be having new podcasts up on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, as well as the Photo Banter YouTube page if you want to check out the video version. And as always, thanks so much for listening, and take care.